This video shows how to solve quadratic equations using square root property. Solving quadratic equations can be simplified using different methods based on the given problem. Now, when do we use square roots in solving quadratic equation? We know that the standard form or general form of quadratic equation is in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Like 2x squared minus 10x plus 25 equals 0, where a, coefficient of x squared, which is 2, b, coefficient of x, which is negative 10, and our c, a constant term, is 25. So, when do we use square root property? We use this method, square root property, when the value of b is 0. If x squared is equal to c, then x equals plus minus square root of c. Remember, if the value of c is positive, then x has two real answers. And if the value of c is negative, then x has two imaginary answers. Now, how do we solve quadratic equations using square root property? What are the steps? First, isolate the squared variable. Second, make sure the coefficient of x squared is 1 before taking the square roots of both sides. Number 3, when taking the square roots of both sides, don't forget the plus or minus sign and then solve. Let us take this example. For step number 1, isolate the squared variable. As you can see, x squared is already isolated. Step number 2, make sure the coefficient of x squared is equal to 1. Now, what is the coefficient of x squared? That is 1. So therefore, we can now take the square root of both sides. So, this is your x squared. Take the square root equals, according to the rule, when taking the square root of both sides, don't forget the plus and minus sign and get the square root of 25. And then cross that out, because when you simplify, that is equal to x. Copy plus and minus. And what is square root of 25? That is 5. Now, how many solutions do we have, or how many values of x are there? Please don't forget that this is a quadratic equation, and this tells us the number of solutions. The highest exponent or degree is 2, therefore there are 2 solutions, or there are 2 values of x. So we have x equals plus minus 5. So we can rewrite this as x equals positive 5, and the other one is x equals negative 5. Now, let us investigate why there are 2 solutions or 2 values of x. So, in investigating, we need to check to see if the values of x or the solutions that we have is correct. So everyone knows, in checking, we are going to use the original problem, which is x squared is equal to 25. So let us use the first value of x, which is positive 5 or plus 5. So x is 5. We will plug it in to x, and the exponent is 2 equals 25. Is 5 squared equals 25? Yes, so 25 equals 25 is correct. So therefore, x equals positive 5 is correct. So let's have negative 5. So we will use the original equation again. In substitution, don't forget to put the substituted number inside the parentheses. So x is negative 5, square it, equals 25. Is negative 5 squared equals 25? Yes, because negative 5 times negative 5 is equal to 25, and that is correct. So therefore, the solutions 5 and negative 5 is correct. And how about this example? First step, isolate the squared variable. So the squared variable here is 5x squared. So we need to eliminate negative 45. And to eliminate that, we have to add 45 on both sides. Cross this out, bring down 5x squared equals 45. According to step number 2, make sure that the coefficient of x squared is 1 before taking the square root of both sides. Then, what do we do with 5x squared? We need to make the coefficient of x squared equals 1. So, divide both sides by 5. What is 5 divided by 5? That is 1. So this will be x squared is equal to, what is 45 divided by 5? That is 9. Then, step number 3, take the square roots of both sides, but don't forget the plus and minus sign. So, let's take the square root of this, plus minus 9. Cross this out, and we have x. Then, plus minus, what is the square root of 9? That is 3. So, how many solutions are there? The solutions are x equals positive 3 and x equals negative 3. If you want to check, okay, let us try. We have 5x squared minus 45 equals 0. So let us use positive 3 first. 5, x is positive 3, square minus 45 equals 0. This is 5. 3 squared is equal to 9. Minus 45 equals 0. What is 5 times 9? This is 45. Minus 45 equals 0. Therefore, positive 3 is correct. So let's have negative 3. So, this is negative 3 squared minus 45 equals 0. It's still 9. And, as you can see, this is 45 minus 45 equals 0. Therefore, the solutions positive and negative 3 are correct. This example is somehow different from my first two examples, but if you will follow all the steps, it is not difficult as you see. So the first step is isolate the squared variable. As you can see, x minus 7 is inside the parentheses and it has an exponent of 2. So therefore, this is already isolated. Step number 2, make sure the coefficient of x squared is 1 before taking the square root of both sides. Again, the coefficient is 1 and x minus 7 is inside the parentheses. So we can now take the square of both sides. So this will be square root, don't forget the plus and minus sign, and square root of 81. And then cross out the square root and the exponent. So what we have is x minus 7 left equals plus minus. Is 81 a perfect square? Square root of 81? Yes, it is, and that is 9. Now, we are finding for the value of x, and this is x minus 7. So we need to simplify, but to do that, you need to separate the plus and minus sign. So let us use the plus. Okay, we will use the plus 9. So this will be x minus 7 equals positive 9 or plus 9 there. Okay, so then Add 7 on both sides to find x. Cross this out, bring down x, and we have 9 plus 7 is 16. So this is the first value of x. How about the second value of x? So since we used positive 9 already, then at this point in time, we will use negative 9. So let us copy x minus 7 equals. So we will not use plus 9 anymore, but minus 9 or negative 9. And then solve. Add 7 on both sides. Cross this out. So we have x equals. What is negative 9 plus 7? So this is negative 2. So therefore, the solutions for x minus 7 squared equals 81 are positive 16 and negative 2. So if you want to know if 16 and negative 2 are the real solutions, you can check by plugging in 16 to the original equation and negative 2 to the original equation. When they are equal, therefore, our solutions are true. Let us simplify. 4x squared minus 6 equals 74. It seems like it's difficult, but follow the steps. Number 1, isolate the squared variable on the left side. So add 6 to eliminate this. Cross that out. Bring down 4x squared equals 74 plus 6 is equal to 80. Before taking the square root of both sides, divide it by 4 or make sure the coefficient of x squared is equal to 1. And 80 divided by 4 is 20. Now, x squared is already isolated. Coefficient is 1. So we can now take the square root of both sides. Cancel. So we have x equals plus minus. Is 20 a perfect number? No. So if the number inside the square root is not a perfect number, you need to find the factors of that number, which is one is perfect and the other one is prime. So let us find 1 times 20. We have 2 times 10, 4 times 5, and that's it. Now, my question is, among all the factors of 20, which is perfect and which is prime? So, this is the pair that we are looking for. So, this will be 4 times 5. So, we will only simplify a perfect number. So, which is perfect? That is 4. What is the square root of 4? That is 2. Is 5 perfect? No. So if it's not perfect, we will just leave it under the square root. So therefore, the values of x are positive 2 square root of 5, or just simply 2 square root of 5, and the other one is negative 2 square root of 5. So if you want, you can just write it as 2 square root of 5 because they are the same. In this example, what have you noticed with the sign of c? The sign of c is negative. At first, I told you that if c is positive, then x has 2 real answers. But if the sign of c is negative, x has 2 imaginary answers. So let us still follow the step. Step number 1 is isolate the squared variable. It is isolated already. Make sure its coefficient is 1. It's 1. So we can now take the square root of both sides. Now, what is the square root of negative 25? We know that 25 is perfect, but any number with negative under the radical sign is imaginary. So we need to factor negative 25 to make 25 perfect. Before that, let us cross this out. So this is x equals plus minus. Okay, please don't forget that the square root of negative 1 is equal to I. I stands for imaginary number. Now, we will factor negative 25. The perfect number must be positive. So this will be 25 times negative 1. So let us factor this out. So you can separate square root of 25 times square root of negative 1 is still negative 25. So let us simplify. X equals plus minus. Since 25 is perfect and square root of 25 is 5 times. What is the value of square root of negative 1? That is I. Therefore, we will convert negative or square root of negative 1 by I. So, what is 5 times I? That is 5I. So, therefore, the values of x or the solutions are, the first one is the positive number, which is 5I. And the second one is negative 5I. Please don't forget, square root of negative 1 is equal to I. Let me give you the same example as the previous one. So, you will remember how to simplify if c is negative. So, c is negative, x squared is isolated, and it has a coefficient of 1. So, let us take the square root of both sides. This is negative 49. So, any number under the radical sign which is negative is imaginary. What is the value of square root of negative 1? That is I. So, let us factor 49, negative 49. So, this will be 49 times negative 1. So, cross this out. This is x equals plus minus. So, let us separate this. This will be square root of 49 times square root of negative 1. So, let us simplify. Plus minus. Is 49 perfect? Yes, it is. So, what is the square root of 49? That is 7 times. What is the value of square root of negative 1? That is I. So, this is I. So, we have x equals plus minus 7 times I is 7I. So, the values of x are 7I or negative 7I. And for our last example, negative 4x squared plus 42 equals negative 102. So, let us follow step 1. Isolate the squared variable on the left side. So, we need to eliminate this by subtracting 42 on both sides. Cross this out. Bring down negative 4x squared equals. What is negative 102 plus negative 42? So that is negative 144. Before taking the square root of both sides, make sure the coefficient of x squared is equal to 1. So, let us divide both sides by negative 4, and this will be equal to x squared equals. What is negative 144 divided by negative 4? You are right, that is positive 36. Then, we followed all the steps. This is isolated. Its coefficient is 1. So, let us now take the square root of both sides. Cross this out. This is x equals plus minus. 36 is perfect and it's positive. What is the square root of 36? That is 6. So therefore, the values or the solutions are x equals 6 or x is equal to negative 6.